Huawei was supposed to benefit from the recent trade truce Beijing had reached with Washington. But the Chinese tech giant is reportedly cutting hundreds of jobs in the US because restrictions are still hurting its business.
So far, there's been no real change. We're not saying that just because things have relaxed a little, that we're fine with being on the blacklist. Actually, we believe our blacklisting should be lifted completely.
Huawei is one of the biggest targets in the trade war. It's a dispute that's weighed on the rest of the economy.
Economic conditions are still severe both at home and abroad. Global growth is slowing, external instability and uncertainty are increasing, unbalanced and inadequate development at home is still acute, and the economy is under new downward pressure.
Chinese GDP grew 6.2% in the second quarter, the slowest pace since 1992. The slowdown came despite a better-than-expected 9.8% jump in retail sales in June. Factory output was also up more than 6%. Responding to the data, US President Donald Trump tweeted,
"Tariffs are having a major effect on companies wanting to leave China for non-tariffed countries. Thousands of companies are leaving. This is why China wants to make a deal with the US and wishes it had not broken the original deal in the first place."
Beijing is working extra hard to lift the world's second-largest economy out of its slump. The government's cut close to $300 billion in taxes this year, and the central bank has promised to boost the amount of money in circulation to encourage spending. But what companies like Huawei want the most is for the trade war with Washington to end. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Let's get more on China's economy now with Anna Ashton in Washington, D.C. She's the Business Advisory Services Director at the US-China Business Council. Welcome to Money Talks, Anna. We know that economic growth in China has been steadily dropping over the past decade. Long gone are those days of double-digit growth. But what's behind this latest weakness in the Chinese economy?
Well, as you said, there is a marked slowdown being reported. 6.2% growth is still much faster growth than most of the world has, and it's still within the target range that the Chinese government has set of 6 to 6.5%, but it's not the direction that U.S. companies or companies elsewhere that do business with China would like to see. Although the President Trump, has indicated that this is somehow the result of U.S. tariffs on Chinese exports, it seems more likely that it is the result of global uncertainties, global economic uncertainties, and U.S. tariffs on Chinese exports are a part of those uncertainties.
Yes, and I want to come back to Donald Trump's reaction to these figures just in a moment. But firstly, do you think this result is something that Beijing should be worried about?
I think any country should be worried when there's an economic slowdown in progress. But as was reported on your show just a few minutes ago, there are sectors of the Chinese economy that are doing well, including retail consumption. And there's a new study out recently by McKinsey that shows that 60% of Chinese growth over the last few years is attributable to Chinese consumption. In fact, many manufacturers who have operations in China are manufacturing more for Chinese consumers now and less for consumers around the world. And that includes our own American companies with operations there. So when the president talks about thousands of companies wanting to move operations to countries that don't have tariffs, that's really not an accurate portrayal of the situation. There are plenty of companies that want to keep their operations in China so that they can serve the Chinese market.
Yes, and we know that since the slowdown really accelerated in recent quarters, Beijing has moved quickly to implement a range of stimulus measures, including tax cuts. Do you think that's the result of, or the positive data from factory output and retail sales, is that a result of the stimulus measures that have been implemented?
That could be contributing to it. I would just say this, that the thing that really needs to happen here between the United States and China is there needs to be a clear focus on the issues that were identified in the U.S. administration's 301 investigation and report, which is IP protection, tech transfer, subsidies to state-owned enterprises. And as long as those are the issues and it's not constantly expanding to include other things, then there's a real chance that we can get these things resolved and tariffs will come off. But right now we have a situation where it's unclear exactly what the issues are that are under discussion, and it's unclear whether or not both sides will be able to reach an agreement. And because of that, there's continued uncertainty about whether or not tariffs are going to increase. We still have the $325 billion worth of Chinese exports that are not currently subject to tariffs, but could be at any moment, and that creates further uncertainty. When the Chinese government puts stimuluses in place, that's sort of directly counter to the kinds of economic changes that we would like to see in the Chinese economy. So if the Chinese economy is indeed slowing down because of US tariffs, then the tariffs are having an impact that is not the one we would like.
Interesting. Now, returning to Donald Trump, he was quick to take credit for the slowdown, essentially, also implying that perhaps Beijing is now even more desperate to reach a trade agreement with the United States. Do you think that's the case?
I don't think that's the case. I think the data over the last couple of years has not shown that the tariffs have had an appreciable impact on the Chinese economy. And while they may be part of the equation now, there's nothing to celebrate in one of our major economic partners having an economic slowdown. That's something that we should all want to fix.
Okay, Anna Ashton in Washington, lovely to get your thoughts. Thank you so much.